This is going to be my second entry into my series I'm doing, DM Diary, and this one's going to be more player oriented because the last one was focused strictly on the DM. Um, and this one's really kind of more general advice about just how to be a good player. And I put good in quotes because there's not really like a wrong way to play Dungeons and Dragons. These are just some guidelines that I think work as a newer player or even experienced ones. Doesn't really matter. That if you follow or if you take them into consideration, the other people at the table are going to enjoy playing with you more. I guess that's what I mean by being a good player. And the first one is really simple, and it's the first thing that you're going to encounter, and that is the start of the session. And it's important that you play without delay. And what I mean by that is when it's scheduled, when you're supposed to play, and like the schedule's created, and when you're supposed to be there, make sure you arrive prepared and ready to go. So arrive on time. Like, that's obvious. You should be doing that anyway. You don't need me to tell you that. But make sure your character sheet is ready to go. It's been updated since the last session. Make sure all of your items are in place. If it's a fresh session and your health has been reset or whatever, make sure that's like finished. If you're in person, make sure that you've brought, a pencil or just like the bare minimum, bringing like your dice and a pencil. A little easier to do online, but regardless, just make sure once you get there and everyone sits down, you're ready to go, just like at the drop of a hat, because your time is limited when you play and it's a long game. So if you could cut down that time is spent just kind of dicking around, like trying to figure out like, oh, I'm missing this or what happened last time, and cut that time down, you'll have more time to actually play with each other, which is pretty important. The second one, which I think is really easy for people to fumble here, and it's not because they're doing it maliciously or they're they're just ignorant to it, and it's that you need to share the spotlight, which is also kind of ties into respecting everyone's time. So what I mean by that is when, let's say you're doing something like you're role playing with an NPC or something, and it's going well, just be aware that the DM might not want to just tell you to like stop talking. Okay, that's the end of your turn. Like, they're gonna keep like giving you a little bit of line, and if you could just keep like pulling on that line and you just keep talking and you try to like take it these different directions and steer the conversation this way or that way, and next thing you know, your turn, in quotes, a turn, it's not, you don't really have turns so much when you're talking to NPCs, but you've been in the spotlight. It's just been you talking to the DM for 20 minutes and everyone else has busted out their phones or whatnot and is kind of checked out, and it's a little unfair for them because a big part of D&D, like, it's not going to be your turn most of the time. Like, usually, if you're playing with 4 players, a quarter of the session is going to be your turn, otherwise it's going to be everybody else's. So when you take a really long turn, especially if it's not, like, super important, like you're just, like, chit-chatting with the DM, basically, in character, other players are going to get pretty annoyed by that, and they might not tell you directly or make it obvious, but just make sure that when it is your turn, you're doing something important and you're not just just having like, like, it's important not to be basically just talking about the weather with the DM. And because it's always the DM's turn, they might not realize it's happening either, because they're not used to having to split up, their time, because they don't. It's basically their time is always on. Where as the players, it's not the case. So just be respectful of everybody else needing a turn to talk, and realizing when you need to cut yourself off, basically. The next thing kind of also goes into respecting everyone's time, but in a different way. This is more about progressing the game and not getting hung up on things, and it's basically don't be a devil's advocate. So let's say let's say you're a party of 4, 3 players want to set up an ambush by this road, because I think people are going to be coming down it that they need to, I don't know, like capture or whatever. Don't be the one player who, even though this is all, it's worked out great, everyone's like planned it in character, it's very sound, the DM is nodding, he agrees. Don't be the one player who just disagrees, and tries to come up with a new plan, and just force everyone else to do what you want. Because even if you do know you have a better plan or you think it'll work better, if the whole table is in agreement with something, you're just going to grind it to a halt with your own idea. And even if you do end up getting it changed your way, it's going to be done begrudgingly to the other players. And it's just going to be a huge time sink to completely scrap one idea or one plan and go with yours. This doesn't even apply to like huge plans, like I just mentioned. Like, I mean, obviously it does, but like, if it's just like a little thing where the player's like, okay, we want to go to this shop, don't be the one player who's like, well, can we go to this shop instead? Like, if you're the one guy who wants to do that, just go with them. Do what they want. Make 3 people happy instead of 1, and then if you have time, see if they want to go do your thing with you. But yeah, just don't be a devil's advocate. You know, be a team player. Just do what the majority want to do. You're gonna find it more fun that way because you're gonna get way more done in one session if everyone's just streamlining things and getting things done as a group. I know it's not always possible in every scenario. Sometimes, you know, you need to split things up a little bit, but try to avoid splitting ideas at the table and, you know, doing multiple plans and like going to multiple places at the same time. Just try to play as a team. This next one is a little weird because you might think, if you've never DM'd before, you might think this as a player is a bad thing, but pressure your DM. What I mean by that is ask them lots of questions, pressure their NPCs, ask questions about them, look for detail in the world, try to get your dungeon master to slip up, I guess is how I would phrase it, because basically they're going to be very excited that you're interested in their world. They're not going to take it as a threat, like, wow, why is this guy trying to make me work so hard? They're going to like that. Like, wow, this guy really cares about what's going on. He cares about my NPCs. You know, he cares about the world building I've done. They're not going to take it as like a threat that you're pressuring them for information. In fact, it'll do the opposite. If you don't ever ask questions about their NPCs, ask questions about the world, really seem to care about like the mystery that's going on in the quest. Like, if you never bring it up and you're just kind of, you know, playing through it robotically, it's going to seem like you're very disinterested or uninterested with the game, and it's going to hurt them. So yeah, that'd be my advice. Engage with the world as much as you can, even to a point where it seems like it might be annoying for the dungeon master, because odds are it probably isn't, and they're loving it. This is another one that's really important, and this is going to be more for like a skilled player. This is a thing they could be doing. As a newer player, you might not be able to do this, but it's to lift up the other players to your level. So what I mean is, if you're very good at role-playing, you're a quick talker, like you can think on your feet very well, and you can keep a conversation flowing, which might be something difficult for newer players to do, especially if they're trying to do it while role-playing as a character. If you're able to do that, lift other players up. So if you find yourself, okay, I'm talking a lot, but it's not pointless, like I'm developing the story, I'm talking to NPCs and progressing the game, but it is usually me talking. I'm like always the leader. Bring other players up to you. So instead of just saying like, okay, I'm thinking my player is going to do this, go talk to another player, be like, hey, so-and-so, maybe the player who doesn't get much time in the spotlight, have a conversation with them and try to get them in a position to speak. As I said, it'll be difficult for a new player to apply this because, you know, you're probably going to be the one speaking less anyway as a fresh player, or typically anyway. But if you're able to keep a conversation flowing and you're very outgoing, definitely bring up those quieter players to try to get them to speak, because they're just going to let you keep flowing otherwise. Another one here, this one's extremely important. I don't think everyone in the party needs to do this, but it is important for at least some of you to, and that is to take notes. I'm not much of a note taker as a dungeon master. I obviously have to do it to some extent, but I forget to do it a lot of the time, and it comes back to bite me. But it's very important to do this. So as a player, take notes. So like, let's say a guy gives you a quest, and you need to know like the name of the person you're looking for. Write it down. If he says you need to go find this guy, and he gives you the name of the dude, you know, you're going to go leave to do your quest, and you're going to get to the dungeon where you think they are, and you're not even going to remember his name, and it's going to be it's gonna seem like to the dungeon master that you're not like focused on the story and you don't care that much, which might not be the case. It's just, there's a lot to remember, especially in a completely fantasy game where you can't relate it to anything in real life. It's a lot to remember. So take notes of what you're told. Most importantly, and like easiest to do really, is just the names of places and people. Being able to have a conversation in game with like an NPC, or if you bring it up to your dungeon master or to another player, and just having the name like come to you naturally, or just have it on a piece of paper that you can look down at, so you don't have to pause and like try to recall, oh, what was that, what was this, having it come out naturally like that is gonna show that you really have a lot of respect for your dungeon master, and they're gonna be happy about it. And again, it's gonna keep the game flowing nicely. You're not gonna waste too much time trying to recall the names of things and places, or have to go out of character to ask the dungeon master again. It just slows things down, not taking notes. And it's really easy to do. I know it might not seem natural to like look down and like write things while like after you finish having a conversation with somebody in game, but it is important to do. My last one for how to be a good player in quotations, and you can do this at every level, and I think it's important, is to plan the next session after you finish the one you're in. So basically, when you finish your session and DM's like wraps it up, okay guys, thanks for playing, don't just log out of the call. And this is like harder to do offline, obviously, because you'll be at the same house as the person, but especially online, don't just log out of the call or say like, okay, thanks, bye. Talk about the session afterwards. Discuss what you did. Talk to the other players, what they think they could have done better, or where they think the next session is going to be going. Talk about some of the decisions your characters made. Discuss it with the DM. This is going to help the DM feel like you're invested in their world, and you really want to be there when you actually talk about it after the fact. Like after you finish watching a movie, you don't just drop what you're doing and go to the next thing. You discuss the movie after you talk about it, right? It's like the same thing in the game. Talk about your session, and then obviously don't just leave and then expect the dungeon master to schedule the next game. It's up to everybody as a group to figure that out as a collective. That'll also take a lot of stress off your DM if you as players can kind of come to an agreement at the end of a session. Now obviously it's not always possible. People don't know their schedules that far ahead all the time, but just do your best. Anyway, I guess that's like all the things I can think are really important to be a good player in Dungeons & Dragons. Again, I'll say there's not like a wrong way to play. It just comes down to being having respect for the other players and the dungeon master is really important, and time management is very important. I guess that's a generalization of everything. And then take notes. Take notes. There's no way to take too many notes. I don't think that's possible. But by taking no notes, you can end up wasting a lot of time trying to recall things or ask people what or who's named what and things like that. I guess that's all.